Smoke curled over the Apache camp. A cowboy kicked down the hide flap, pistol raised. The man inside didn't flinch. He simply stood, scars crossing his chest, eyes cold as iron. The cowboy realized too late he had woken the clan's most brutal warrior. The pistol trembled in the cowboy's hand, though his grin tried to hide it. "Easy game," he muttered. "Take the camp. Take their horses." The warrior stepped into the lantern glow. Bare feet, silent on dirt. Shoulders broad, skin carved with old wounds that hadn't healed pretty. His gaze never left the cowboy's eyes. "Wrong fire," the warrior said, voice low, gravel thick with years of war. The cowboy's breath caught. His buddies laughed nervously outside, one boots crunching, whooping as they dragged hides from the ground. "Found their stores," one shouted. Another fired into the night for fun, but the man inside didn't laugh. He didn't move fast. He didn't have to. His stillness was heavier than any gun. The cowboy forced bravado, jerking his pistol higher. "One step and I drop you." The warrior tilted his head, like he'd heard that song before. "Then shoot." Outside, another scream. Short, sharp, cut off. The cowboy flinched, eyes darting toward the flap. When he looked back, the warrior was closer. Just one pace, but it felt like a canyon crossed. "You raided wrong camp," the warrior said again. His scars glistened in the lamplight, lines across chest and arms like tally marks. "You want horses? Take them. You want blood? Take mine. But you'll never leave carrying both." The cowboy's finger tightened on the trigger. Sweat slid down his temple. For the first time, he felt it. Not victory, but a weight pressing him into the earth. He licked his lips, tried to grin. "We outnumber you 10-1. The warrior's eyes didn't blink. "Then I'll kill 11. The pistol trembled harder. From outside came the sound of hooves breaking loose, the Apache ponies already scattering into the dark. His men cursed, shouting, chasing shadows. The cowboy's stomach sank. His numbers were thinning by the heartbeat. The warrior's voice cut the noise clean. "You brought a raid. I'll bring a war." The cowboy finally understood. This wasn't a man he'd cornered. This was the trap he had walked into. And the night had only begun. The cowboy's pistol shook, though he tried to steady it by grinding his teeth. The warrior's shadow swallowed the lamplight, his scars cutting maps across his body. From outside came a yell, "Get the squaws!" followed by another burst of laughter. The cowboy forced himself to grin. "Hear that? We own this camp now." The warrior didn't blink. "You own nothing." His hand hovered near the hatchet strapped to his thigh, fingers steady, as if time obeyed him. Boots scuffed at the doorway. Another cowboy barged in, rifle loose at his hip. "Ain't you finished yet, Billy? Just shoot the savage and be done." Billy's throat worked, pistol twitching. The newcomer snorted, stepped past him, raising his rifle. It was the last step he took. The warrior moved like a storm breaking, hatchet flashing in a downward arc. Bone cracked. The rifle dropped with the cowboy still clinging to it, his eyes already glass. Billy froze, bile rising in his throat. "Jesus!" The warrior spun, the hatchet dripping, eyes cutting through him. "Call your God! He won't answer here!" Outside, the camp erupted. Gunfire, shouts, the squeal of terrified ponies. One raider screamed for help, then choked silent. Another cursed, his words cut short by the hiss of arrows from the dark. Billy's men weren't laughing anymore. He staggered back, pistol swinging wide. The warrior stepped forward, deliberate, his breath even. "Go," he said. "Tell the others what happens when you touch Apache fire." Billy tried to sneer. "You think you scare me." But the sneer cracked, his voice breaking. Sweat soaked his shirt. The warrior's hand closed around the fallen rifle, lifting it as if it weighed nothing. "You're already scared." A shout split the night. "Fall back!" One of Billy's men bolted past the flap, clutching a wound in his side. Another dropped to his knees, an arrow jutting from his shoulder. Billy's grip slipped on his pistol. His stomach knew the truth before his mind caught up. They weren't raiding, they were drowning. The warrior raised the rifle, pointing not at Billy, but through the flap, firing once. A cowboy outside screamed, fell into the firelight. Silence followed. Billy's ears rang, his pistol clattered to the dirt. His body refused to bend for it. The warrior took another step. "Run!" Billy's breath tore his chest. He turned, bolted through the flap. The camp outside was hell, fire pits overturned, shadows darting between tents, arrows whistling from ridges. Cowboys stumbled in the dirt, firing blind into the night. Billy saw one of his men trampled beneath a panicked pony, his scream cut short under hooves. Another dropped, throat spouting red where an arrowhead had found him. He fell to his knees, hands clawing the dirt, gasping. "We gotta pull out! Mount up!" No answer came. Most were already down. The warrior emerged behind him, walking, not running, rifle in hand, hatchet at his hip, face carved from stone. Billy crawled backward, eyes wide, mud caking his palms. "No, no, please!" The warrior knelt in front of him, voice low enough to slice. "You came for blood. You found it." Billy's chest heaved. He saw the other raiders, 5 still breathing, some crawling, some trying to drag themselves toward the horses that weren't there anymore. The ponies had vanished into the dark. The warrior turned his head, speaking to the night itself. "Leave one alive." An arrow hissed past Billy's ear, burying itself in another cowboy's chest. That man convulsed once, then stilled. Billy sobbed, realizing who the one alive would be. The warrior's gaze cut back to him, sharp as the knife scars across his chest. "Tell them," he said. "Tell every town, every ranch, this is Apache ground. Come again, and you'll find worse." Billy's mouth worked, but no words came. The warrior leaned closer until his breath was hot on Billy's cheek. "You're alive because I let you crawl. Don't mistake that for mercy." Behind him, fire cracked, the camp half shattered, corpses sprawled like broken dolls. The night reeked of smoke and blood. Billy trembled, hands gripping dirt as if it could hold him upright. He knew if he spoke, his teeth would chatter through the words. He swallowed instead, nodding again and again. The warrior rose, tall, unmoving, watching as Billy stumbled to his feet and staggered into the darkness. The plains would carry his sobs for miles, and the story with them. But as Billy vanished, the warrior's eyes narrowed. The fire showed what Billy hadn't seen yet, shadows on the far ridge, more riders waiting, watching. Not his men, not Apaches. Someone else had come to collect from this blood-soaked night. Billy ran, stumbling into the sage, his sobs swallowed by the endless dark. The fire behind him flickered smaller, but the screams didn't fade from his skull. The warrior didn't follow. He stood tall in the wreckage, chest streaked with soot and blood, watching the horizon. His men slipped from the shadows, archers, silent, faces hard with paint. They gathered without words, each glance enough. One of them pointed, high on the ridge, shapes shifted against the pale moon, not the limp sway of tired raiders. These men sat straight, still, their horses snorting but reined tight. "Not cowboys," the archer whispered. The warrior narrowed his eyes. The wind carried faint creaks of leather, the metallic clink of bridles, too disciplined, too calm. The widow of the camp, the only elder who had survived the raid, limped forward, her shawl singed. "Who watches?" she rasped. The warrior didn't answer yet. He stepped closer to the fire, letting the flames light his chest, his scars. He wanted the watchers to see him, to know who they were staring at. From the ridge, a voice carried down, slow and clear. "We counted 10 cowboys. We see only corpses." The warrior raised his chin. "Then you can stop counting." A pause. Then another voice, younger, sharper. "You killed them fast, too fast for men with rifles. That's not luck, that's skill." The warrior's men shifted uneasily. The elder touched his arm. "They know your name." He shrugged her hand off, but his jaw tightened. "Names travel." The ridge rustled again. A figure urged his horse down the slope, alone, his silhouette stark against the firelight. He wore no badge, no star, but something worse. Confidence. The kind of confidence bred only in men who had survived slaughter. He stopped 20 paces away, hands loose on his reins. His horse pawed the dirt, restless under its rider's calm. "Warrior!" he said, like a title, not a greeting. "I've heard stories." The warrior's voice was iron. "Stories don't bleed," the man smiled thinly. "True, but men do. Cowboys raided this camp. You cut them down. Impressive. But you're not the only one who keeps score. The warrior tilted his head. Who are you? The rider leaned forward, eyes glinting. The man who takes what's left when smoke clears. Behind him, more riders edged into view, fanning down the ridge in silence. They weren't cowboys, not settlers. Their gear was mixed, stolen saddles, Apache blankets, army rifles, not one allegiance, mercenaries. The archer spat in the dirt, scavengers. The rider didn't deny it. War feeds us, and tonight you made a fine feast. His gaze swept over the camp, burning stores, broken tents, bodies cooling. We'll take what remains. The ponies you scattered will be ours by morning. The warrior stepped forward, close enough for firelight to catch his scars. His knife flashed as he cleaned it on his palm. Take one step into this camp and you'll join them. He nodded toward the dead cowboys. The rider's smile held, but thinner now. Brutal, just as they said. One of the mercenaries behind him chuckled. We came to see if he was real. The warrior's men shifted, bows rising. The elder hissed, not tonight, too many, too soon. But the warrior's voice was calm. They didn't come to see. They came to test. The rider straightened in his saddle. You're clever. That'll make killing you worth more coin. The warrior twirled the knife in his palm, then slid it into its sheath. He picked up the fallen rifle instead, cocking it with one hand. Test me then. The mercenaries stirred, their leader holding them back with a raised palm. His grin returned. Not tonight. You're blood hot, still standing. I prefer meat cooled. He tugged his reins. His horse wheeled, hooves striking sparks. He looked back once. But we'll come. When your fire's ash, when your eyes are heavy, we'll come. And then we'll see how brutal you are. They retreated in silence, shadows slipping back into the ridge, swallowed by the night. The warrior lowered the rifle, his men tensing still, bows aimed. He shook his head once. They won't strike tonight, but they will. The elder groaned, sinking to her knees. We can't fight another raid. Not broken, not bleeding. The warrior stared at the ridge where the riders had vanished, jaw set. Then we don't wait for them to come. He turned, gathering his men with a glance. We go hunting. The fire hissed, the smoke rose, and on the ridge, unseen eyes still lingered, waiting for the moment the brutal warrior made his move. The camp smoldered, smoke curling like ghosts above the burned hides. Bodies lay where they had fallen, eyes open to the stars that cared nothing for blood or vengeance. The warrior crouched near the largest fire pit, dragging a stick through the dirt. His men circled close, faces painted by shadow and flame. They will come, he said simply, drawing a ridge with his stick, then an arrow pointing down. Not with torches, not laughing like boys. They'll come quiet, at dawn, with rifles ready. The archer leaned forward, jaw tight. We strike them before dawn. Another shook his head. We've lost too many. Every arrow must count. We cannot fight a company. The elder coughed, her voice brittle but sharp. He said he'd wait. He'll choose the moment, not you, and when he chooses, it will cut deeper than you think. The warrior glanced at her, then back to the dirt. He doesn't know our ground. He drew another line, curving around the ridge. Here, where the stream cuts, the earth swallows sound. We draw them in. We break them like dry wood. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of embers. The archer frowned. And what of the women, the children? They cannot move. Their feet are heavy with grief. The elder's eyes flicked to the warrior, hard. You ask if he will abandon us? The warrior stabbed the stick into the earth, snapping it. No, they stay behind me. Always. For the first time, a few heads nodded. The fire popped. Sparks rose and vanished. But then a new voice spoke, soft, young, unsteady. And what if you fall? The warrior's eyes lifted. A boy stood at the edge of the circle, no older than 12, ribs showing through a torn shirt, clutching a bow too big for his arms. His eyes didn't waver. If you fall, the boy said again. What happens to us? The circle shifted. Men muttered. Some frowned, others smirked, but none laughed. The warrior studied him a long moment, then rose. He walked to the boy, looming above him like a wall of scars and silence. The boy swallowed but did not step back. The warrior's voice was low. "If I fall, you stand." The boy's knuckles whitened on the bow. "I will," the elder hissed. "He's a child." The warrior's eyes never left the boy's. "So was I when blood first touched my hands." The boy nodded, trembling but fierce. The warrior reached down, gripping the bow, adjusting the boy's hands. "Not yet, but soon." He released him, turned back to the circle. "At dawn, we move, not as cowards fleeing, as hunters." A ripple passed through the men. Fear remained, but it was hardened now, edged with steel. They scattered, preparing, sharpening blades, restringing bows, whispering to the ponies that had returned from the dark as if guided by unseen hands. The warrior walked alone to the edge of the camp, staring at the ridge where the mercenaries had vanished. His breath misted in the cooling night, his scars itched with old memories. He remembered other raids, other nights of fire and death. He remembered men who had promised to wait, and then came with dawn, crushing whole families before the sun warmed the earth. His hand brushed the handle of his hatchet. His jaw tightened. "Not this time," he murmured. Behind him, the boy lingered, watching with wide eyes. The warrior glanced back, seeing not weakness, but something sharper, like flint catching spark. He almost said something more, but stopped. Words weren't the armor the boy needed. The night deepened. Wolves howled far off, as if marking the edge of the world. Then, faint but clear, from the ridge, a whistle, short, deliberate. The warrior froze. His men lifted their heads. The elder muttered a curse. "They don't wait," the warrior said, voice flat. He drew his hatchet, the firelight dancing on its blade. "They hunt tonight." And from the dark beyond the ridge came the answering sound. Hooves, dozens of them, descending steady as thunder. The ground trembled under the hooves before the riders even broke the ridge. The night carried their rhythm like a drumbeat of war. The warrior raised his hand. Every Apache crouched low, bows ready, eyes sharp. The fire burned low now, only embers glowing, their camp cloaked in shadow. "They come hungry," the elder whispered. The warrior's voice was stone. "Then let them starve." A line of riders burst from the ridge, their silhouettes black against the moon. They came not yelling like the cowboys had, but silent, tight, the way killers rode. Rifles glinted in their hands. The warrior's men waited, still as carved wood. The first rider entered the circle of embers. An arrow flew. He toppled backward without a sound, his horse screaming as it veered away. Gunfire exploded in answer. Sparks jumped from stone as bullets tore into the camp. A woman cried out, clutching her shoulder. Another dove to shield her child. The warrior barked one word, "Down!" His men vanished into the shadows, loosing arrows from angles the mercenaries couldn't see. Horses bucked, riders cursed. One mercenary leapt from his horse, charging into the tents with a knife. The boy, the same who had spoken earlier, stood in his path, bow trembling. The warrior's chest clenched, but before he moved, the boy let the string snap. The arrow flew short, grazing the man's arm. The mercenary snarled, knife raising. The warrior was there in 3 strides. His hatchet split the air. The knife clattered to the dirt with its hand still clutching it. The boy's breath came ragged, his eyes locked on the fallen man. I missed." The warrior shoved him back. "You made him look." His voice was harsh, but his hand lingered on the boy's shoulder, just long enough. Bullets cracked again. A horse collapsed into the fire, flames licking its mane as it thrashed, shrieking. The mercenaries pressed harder, trying to force their weight through the thin line of defenders. "Circle them!" The leader's voice rang out, recognizable, cold, the same man who had spoken from the ridge. "Break their bones! Take their scalps!" The warrior's jaw tightened. He shouted something guttural, a word older than English, older than hate. His men shifted like wolves, pulling back toward the stream bed he had drawn in the dirt earlier. The mercenaries followed, eager, thinking they had pushed their prey into retreat. They didn't see the trap until the first horse slipped. The stream bed was slick with mud, the water shallow but treacherous. Hooves slid, riders pitched forward, curses filling the night. From the ridges on both sides, Apache arrows rained down. 3 mercenaries fell before they could raise their rifles. Another drowned beneath his own horse, thrashing in panic. The warrior moved through it all like fire through dry grass, hatchet and rifle both finding flesh. Every strike was precise, every step unyielding. But the mercenaries were many and skilled. For every one that fell, another pressed forward. Gunpowder stung the air. Blood slicked the mud. The leader's voice rose again, cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line! He bleeds like any man!" The warrior heard it. He felt the sting across his ribs, a bullet grazing close. Warmth spread down his side. He didn't flinch. He raised his rifle, fired once. A mercenary pitched backward, skull shattered. The boy appeared at his side again, too close, arrows clutched in shaking hands. "Go back!" the warrior roared. "I won't!" the boy shouted, voice cracking but fierce. The warrior's eyes burned, but there was no time to argue. He grabbed the boy, shoving him behind a fallen log. "Then stay low, or you'll join your father in the ground." The boy's breath hitched, but he nodded, crouching with the bow ready. The fight pressed closer. The mercenaries snarled like wolves, their leader driving them with curses. The Apache lines strained, arrows thinning, blades flashing in the dark. Then another whistle, sharp. Not from the ridge this time, but deeper in the night. The leader froze, eyes narrowing. He turned his head, listening. Hooves. Many. Approaching fast. The warrior's chest tightened. Reinforcements. But whose? The mercenaries pulled back a pace, rifles raised toward the sound. The Apache froze, every breath sharp with dread. From the darkness came the thunder of riders, dozens, maybe more. The ground quaked under their charge. The mercenary leader's grin split his face. "Now," he hissed. "Now he dies." The warrior steadied his rifle, scars burning, eyes fixed on the black horizon. Whatever came next would break the night in two. The night ripped open with thunder. Hooves pounded like war drums, closer, closer, until the earth itself seemed ready to split. The mercenaries cheered, rifles raised, thinking their strength had doubled. The Apache braced, arrows poised, faces lit by fire and fear. The warrior alone stood steady, his jaw clenched. He knew salvation didn't ride with such noise. Only death did. The riders burst into view, a column of horsemen, their coats flapping like torn banners. Moonlight glinted off rifles and revolvers, off the brass buckles of saddles taken from dead soldiers. Cowboys, not mercenaries. A second raiding party, drawn by smoke and fire. The mercenary leader barked a laugh. "Fate is kind tonight," the warrior's men faltered. 2 enemies, not one. Twice the rifles, twice the steel. The boy whispered from behind the log, voice trembling. "We can't fight both." The warrior didn't answer. He raised his rifle, firing into the column before they closed. One cowboy dropped, rolling under hooves, but the line didn't break. They slammed into the stream bed with pistols blazing. Bullets whined past ears, bit into flesh. An Apache crumpled with a cry. Another staggered, clutching his side. The elder screamed over the chaos, "Pull back! We'll all die here!" The warrior turned, eyes hard as stone. "No! We make them kill each other." His men hesitated, but his hand cut the air, commanding. They shifted, slipping into shadows, vanishing into the rocks and brush, leaving the battlefield open. The mercenaries suddenly stood alone in the mud as the cowboy column crashed through. Confusion erupted. Horses reared, guns fired wild, curses flew in every direction. "Who the hell are you?" a cowboy shouted, leveling his rifle at a mercenary. "Your grave," the mercenary spat back, firing point blank. The cowboy toppled. The streambed exploded into chaos. Mercenaries and cowboys, both greedy, both blind with bloodlust, clashed in the dark, each thinking the other enemy. The warrior watched from cover, breath steady. His plan was fire-catching dry grass, their rage feeding itself. The boy crawled beside him, wide-eyed. "You made them fight each other." The warrior didn't look at him. "Men with hunger always turn on each other. You just have to feed it." Gunfire rattled. Men screamed. Horses fell, crushing riders under hooves. The smell of powder and blood thickened the air. From their cover, the Apaches loosed arrows, each one deliberate, vanishing back into shadow. A mercenary dropped, then a cowboy, neither knowing who had struck them. Panic spread faster than bullets. The mercenary leader bellowed, trying to steady his men. Not them! The savages! Kill the savages! But his men didn't listen. They were too busy firing at cowboys firing back. The warrior's lips curved in something close to a smile, yet victory was far off. The cowboys outnumbered them all, their rifles fast, their horses fresh. As mercenaries fell, the tide shifted. The cowboys began to break through, pressing toward the camp, eyes catching the figures hiding among the rocks. A bullet cracked the stone near the boy's head. He gasped, ducking lower. The warrior shoved him flat. "Stay down!" But the boy's hands shook, gripping his bow. "If I stay down, I'll die like the rest." The warrior's chest burned. He saw himself in the boy, too young, too defiant, too close to blood. He grabbed the boy's face and, forcing his eyes to meet his, "Then if you stand, you do it to live, not to die." The boy swallowed hard, nodding, his bowstring pulled taut again, teeth clenched. Gunfire surged. The cowboys broke through the mercenary line, pushing hard their leader. A tall man with a scar splitting his lip, riding at the front. His revolver cracked, dropping another Apache, his voice carried like thunder. "Take the women! Burn the rest!" The warrior felt his blood boil. He raised his rifle, sight fixed on the scarred man. His finger tightened. But before he could fire, a scream split the night, high, sharp, raw. "The boy!" The warrior whipped his head. The boy's bow had loosed, but his small body had been struck, knocked backward, an arrow through his shoulder. "No!" the warrior roared, leaping toward him. The boy's eyes fluttered, lips pale. His hands clawed weakly at the shaft. The scarred cowboy laughed, revolver spinning. "Even your pups fall easy." The warrior's vision tunneled. His pulse pounded like war drums. He rose, hatchet in hand, eyes fixed on the scarred rider. The night roared around him. Gunfire, screams, thunder of hooves. But all he saw was that rider, and all he knew was that one of them wouldn't leave this night breathing. The scarred cowboy spurred his horse forward, revolver gleaming in his hand. His grin split the firelight, cruel and hungry. The warrior stepped into the open, hatchet raised, rifle slung across his back. Blood streaked his ribs, but his eyes burned with a fire older than this land. The cowboy sneered. "So you're the one they whisper about. The butcher, the savage." He cocked his revolver, aiming at the warrior's chest. "Let's see how much of that is truth." The warrior's voice was flat, calm as stone. "Truth doesn't need a tongue, it leaves scars." The cowboy barked a laugh, then fired. The shot cracked the air, wood splintered inches from the warrior's leg. He hadn't moved. "Bold," the cowboy muttered, "or stupid." The warrior moved suddenly, fluid as a wolf. He hurled his hatchet, not at the cowboy, but at the horse's bridle. The blade struck true. The beast reared, screaming, throwing the cowboy sideways. The revolver went wide. A second shot tore into the night, harmless. The warrior was on him before he hit the mud. Fists, knees, blood. The cowboy rolled, swinging the revolver like a club, catching the warrior's jaw. The taste of iron filled his mouth. He didn't spit. He drove forward, head slamming into the cowboy's nose with a crack. The man screamed, blood spraying. Still he swung, clawing at his belt. His hand closed around a knife. Steel flashed. The warrior caught the wrist, veins bulging, teeth clenched, slowly, painfully. He forced the blade away. The cowboy spat blood into his face. "You'll die in the dirt like the rest of your kind." The warrior's breath was hot against his ear. "If I die, you'll follow." He slammed the man's head into the mud once, twice. The knife clattered free. The warrior snatched it, burying it in the earth an inch from the cowboy's throat. The man froze, chest heaving. His eyes burned with hate, but his body sagged under the weight of the warrior's strength. Around them, the battle still raged, gunfire, hooves, screams. But the circle of mud felt like its own world, its own graveyard. The cowboy rasped, "Kill me and my men will tear you apart." The warrior's hand gripped his throat, pressing, "Spare you and they'll think you weak." The cowboy's lips trembled, his bravado cracking. "You can't stop us. Too many. Too strong." The warrior leaned close, voice low. Then I'll make them fear me more than they fear you." He let go suddenly, rising. The cowboy gasped, rolling onto his side. Relief flashed across his bloodied face until the warrior seized his revolver. The warrior raised it high, shouting in the mercenary's tongue, voice carrying over the chaos. "Your leader bleeds!" Heads turned. Gunfire faltered. The mercenaries saw their scarred commander broken in the mud, weapon stripped, face bloodied. Doubt spread through their line like sickness. The cowboy's eyes widened. "No!" he roared, scrambling to rise. "Don't listen!" "Fight!" The warrior leveled the revolver at his chest. His finger tightened, but then a scream. The boy. The warrior's eyes snapped to the log where he'd left him. The boy had tried to rise, bow still in hand, but now two cowboys had reached him. One tore the bow from his grasp. The other yanked him to his feet, knife at his throat. The scarred cowboy laughed through broken teeth, blood streaking his chin. "Looks like the boy chose your fate for you." The warrior froze, chest heaving, revolver steady. The boy struggled, his small frame twisting, eyes blazing, the knife pressed harder. The boy gasped, Don't trade me," he choked. The cowboy staggered to his feet, wiping blood from his face. His grin was jagged, wild. "You can kill me now, warrior." But the boy dies screaming. Or you drop the gun, and maybe he lives. The battlefield hushed. Even the mercenaries stilled, eyes flicking between the two men. The warrior's hand didn't shake, but inside his chest, fire and ice clashed. His breath came heavy. The revolver weighed the choice. The boy's eyes locked on his, fierce, pleading. "Do it," he whispered. "Don't let him win." The knife edge gleamed against his throat. The cowboy's laugh echoed over the stream bed. And the warrior had one breath left to decide whether he would pull the trigger or gamble the boy's life against it. The battlefield held its breath. Even the horses stilled, nostrils flaring, as if the earth itself waited for the warrior's choice. The revolver's barrel gleamed under the moon. One pull and the scarred cowboy would fall, but the boy's throat pressed against cold steel, a single twitch away from spilling his life into the mud. The scarred cowboy spat blood, grinning through broken teeth. Drop it, savage, or watch him choke on his last breath. The warrior's chest heaved, breath rasping. His hand didn't shake, but his mind raced. Kill the man now, and the boy's life would be severed before the echo of the shot. Spare him, and the mercenaries would think him broken. The boy's eyes, wide, fierce, burning, cut through the noise. "Don't," he whispered hoarsely, barely audible. "Don't save me. End him." The warrior's jaw clenched. His scars itched, alive with old memories, times when hesitation had cost lives. But hesitation wasn't what seized him now. It was something colder, clarity. The revolver lowered. Gasps rippled through the mercenaries. Some smirked, believing victory was in their grasp. The scarred cowboy barked a laugh. "Smart dog. You've chosen right." He stepped forward, yanking the boy closer, knife-biting skin. "On your knees." The warrior sank slowly, mud sucking at his legs, revolver lowering until it touched the earth. He let it fall, the weight thudding in the silence. The cowboy's grin widened. "See? Even wolves beg when the leash is tight enough." But the boy, though blood trickled from his throat where the blade pressed, didn't cry. His lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. The warrior met his eyes, then moved. It was small, almost nothing. A nod. The boy understood. He drove his heel down on the cowboy's boot, sudden and vicious. The man cursed, balance faltering for a breath. It was enough. The warrior surged forward, grabbing the revolver from the mud in one fluid motion. His arm snapped up, firing before the cowboy could steady his grip. The shot tore through the cowboy's shoulder. The knife clattered to the dirt as he howled, staggering back. The boy collapsed, clutching his bleeding neck but alive. Chaos ignited. Mercenaries shouted, firing wildly, unsure if their leader had fallen or if he still commanded. Cowboys cursed, their lines breaking under the sudden confusion. The warrior didn't stop. He was on the scarred cowboy, slamming him into the mud, revolver barrel crushing against his teeth. "You lose when fear owns you," the warrior growled, voice guttural. The cowboy spat blood, defiant even as pain racked him. "Then kill me, savage. Prove you're no better." The warrior's finger tightened on the trigger, then stopped. His eyes burned, but his voice came cold. "Better men let scars speak." He struck with the revolver instead, cracking the man's skull, leaving him gasping, broken but alive. The mercenaries faltered. Their leader was beaten, crawling in the dirt, not dead, but destroyed. Whispers spread. Doubt clung like smoke. The warrior rose, lifting the revolver high for all to see. His voice cut through the battlefield like thunder. "Your leader kneels. Who stands for him now?" Silence. Only ragged breaths, shifting hooves, the moan of the wounded. The elder's voice rose sharp behind him. "See how men of greed fall. Who dares fight a shadow that bleeds you all?" The mercenaries' line wavered. One dropped his rifle. Another turned his horse. Panic spread, not like fire now, but like rot. The cowboys, too, drew back, no longer charging. Their scarred commander groaned in the mud, no longer their shield. For a moment it seemed the Apache had seized not victory, but reprieve. But then a gunshot split the air. The boy screamed. He fell sideways, clutching his chest, eyes wide. Blood seeped between his fingers. The warrior spun, revolver snapping toward the source. At the edge of the chaos, one mercenary lowered his smoking rifle, eyes wide with triumph and terror. The warrior fired. The man dropped, lifeless, but the boy lay gasping, blood bubbling at his lips, his small body convulsing. The warrior stumbled to him, dropping to his knees, hands pressing the wound, voice breaking for the first time that night. "Stay, breathe, do not leave yet." The boy's eyes flickered, dimming. His hand reached weakly, gripping the warrior's wrist with the last strength he had. His lips parted. A whisper barely carried on breath. "Father." The warrior froze, pain crashing through him harder than any bullet. The boy's hand slipped away, his chest stilled. And for the first time in years, the warrior's roar broke the night, raw and unchained, a sound of grief that made even the bravest rider flinch. The battle around them blurred, men retreating, others falling, but all the warrior saw was the boy's lifeless face in the mud. The boy's hand slipped from his wrist, fingers curling lifeless into the mud. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. The battlefield's roar dulled, every gunshot and scream swallowed by the silence inside the warrior's chest. His scars burned. His breath came ragged, not from exhaustion but from something older, darker, grief, rage. He lowered the boy's body gently, brushing blood-streaked hair from his small face. Then he stood. The revolver dangled in his hand. His eyes, hollow a breath ago, now blazed like fire reflected in iron. Mercenaries shifted uneasily, sensing the change. One muttered, "He's just one man," but his voice quavered. The warrior raised the revolver, fired once. A cowboy toppled from his saddle, skull snapping back. He didn't pause, swung the gun to another target, fired again. The man crumpled. The camp erupted. Mercenaries shouted, "Kill him!" Rifles cracked. Bullets tore past. But the warrior didn't duck, didn't retreat. He moved forward, slow and deliberate, like death itself had taken flesh. He hurled the revolver when the chamber emptied, striking one man's face with such force the bone shattered. The man fell screaming. The warrior drew his hatchet, ripped from a corpse. Its blade glistened under the moon, dripping with rain and blood. He charged. A cowboy swung down from his horse, revolver raised. The warrior's hatchet split his arm before the trigger pulled. A scream, a spray of blood. The man collapsed. Another came at him with a knife. The warrior caught the wrist, twisted until bones cracked, then buried the hatchet in his chest. He kicked the body aside, already moving. Gunfire filled the night. Sparks leapt from rocks as bullets ricocheted, but the warrior moved through it like a storm, uncaring, unstoppable. His men, still reeling from the boy's death, now found themselves pulled into his fury. They rose from cover, voices breaking into war cries, arrows streaking into the night, blades flashing in the firelight. The elder raised her staff, voice shrill. "See how grief sharpens the blade. Follow." The Apache surged with him, cutting into the chaos. The scarred cowboy, still staggering with blood dripping from his shoulder, tried to rally his men. "Stand! He bleeds like any man." But his voice cracked. His men saw him for what he was, broken, defeated. The warrior slammed into another mercenary, driving the hatchet down through collarbone into chest. He tore it free with a spray of blood, eyes never blinking. He grabbed a fallen rifle, swung it like a club, crushing a cowboy's jaw. The man dropped before he could scream. One mercenary tried to retreat, spurring his horse. The warrior hurled the hatchet, the blade spinning through the dark before burying in the man's spine. He pitched forward, lifeless. The warrior strode forward, ripping the weapon free, face a mask of blood and shadow. The cowboy's line broke. Men fled into the night, trampling each other, dropping rifles in panic. But still, the warrior didn't stop. He hunted them, cutting through anyone who dared linger. The boy's last word echoed in his skull, "Father." Each strike, each shot, each scream was fed by it. Not vengeance, not honor, just that one word carved into his heart. When his hatchet stuck in another chest, he left it there, snatching up a fallen saber. Steel whistled as he swung, slicing through flesh, bone, even air. Mercenaries cried out, voices high with terror, "He's not human! It's a demon!" The battlefield tilted. What had been nearly lost now bent, shifting with every scream, every retreating hoof. But fury doesn't spare. Fury devours. The warrior's men shouted for him, but he didn't hear. His blade cut down one after another until mud and blood became indistinguishable beneath his boots. At the ridge, the last of the mercenaries fled, dropping torches, leaving the dead behind. The scarred cowboy, stumbling, his face half swollen, half broken, crawled toward a fallen horse, eyes wild. He glanced back once, saw the warrior striding toward him, saber dripping red. His breath hitched. He clawed faster, pulling himself onto the saddle with one arm. The warrior's voice cut through the night, low but carrying. No shadow escapes the fire. He raised the saber, sprinted forward, and with one leap struck at the horse's flank. The beast screamed, rearing, throwing the cowboy onto the rocks. The man lay broken, coughing blood, eyes wide with fear. The warrior approached, towering over him, saber raised high. The scarred cowboy's voice rasped, "Mercy, you wouldn't kill an unarmed man." The warrior's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked once to where the boy's body lay still. His chest heaved. The saber gleamed as it descended, and the screen cut to black. The saber hovered above the scarred cowboy's throat, its edge glowing faint under the moonlight. The man's breath rattled, shallow, broken. His eyes, swollen nearly shut, flickered with a mix of terror and defiance. The warrior's chest rose and fell, every breath heavy with blood and grief. His knuckles whitened around the hilt. One strike, and the man who had brought death into the camp would be gone forever. The scarred cowboy coughed, spitting blood. "Do it. Prove you're no better." A savage, with no law but the blade. The warrior's jaw tightened. The saber trembled, not from weakness, but from the war inside him. The boy's last word, "Father," still echoed, pulling at something deeper than fury. Behind him, the camp crackled. The wounded moaned. Children sobbed. His people watched from the shadows, breaths caught in their throats. The elder stepped forward, her staff sinking into the mud. Her voice was sharp. "End him. His shadow will always return unless you cut it now." But another voice rose, the archer weary, bloodied. "If you kill him broken, you teach our sons only to hate. Let him crawl back to his kind shamed, less than the dirt beneath him." The warrior didn't move. His eyes burned down into the cowboy's face. The man rasped, "If you spare me, I'll come back. I'll burn every camp, every child. I'll carve your name into graves." The saber pressed closer, nicking skin. A bead of blood welled on his throat. The warrior whispered, more to himself than to anyone, "Mercy feeds wolves, but vengeance starves the soul." He raised the blade higher, muscles coiling for the final blow. And then a sound shattered the night. Hooves, dozens. From the ridge, the warrior froze, blade still poised. His people shifted nervously, weapons lifting again. The elder hissed, "More riders!" He wasn't the only one. The scarred cowboy's bloody grin spread, cracked and wild. "Yes, yes, you think you've won. You've only woken the storm." The warrior turned his head, eyes narrowing toward the ridge. Dust clouded in the moonlight as silhouettes appeared. Horsemen, but not dressed like the scarred man's mercenaries. Their banners fluttered in the wind. The elder squinted, then gasped. Not cowboys. Soldiers. The warrior's chest tightened. Rifles glinted in the moonlight. Disciplined, ready. The U.S. cavalry. The scarred cowboy laughed until it turned to a bloody cough. "Now you die like the rest of your kind, hunted, surrounded." The warrior lowered the saber slightly, mind racing. His men were battered, arrows spent, powder low. They could not face fresh rifles lined in ranks. The elder's voice hissed, urgent. "Strike him now before his tongue betrays us." But the warrior's arm remained frozen, blade quivering. The cavalry descended in neat formation, boots pounding, rifles at the ready. Their officer raised his hand, shouting, "Hold fire!" For a heartbeat, no one moved. Even the wind seemed to pause. The officer rode closer, eyes scanning the carnage, the fallen mercenaries, the smoking camp, the boy's still body. His gaze fell on the warrior, saber raised above the scarred cowboy. His expression hardened. The scarred cowboy groaned, voice shrill with desperation. "Colonel, arrest him! Savage butcher! He killed my men! He'll kill us all!" The officer's eyes narrowed. His voice was cold steel. "Silence!" The scarred cowboy blinked, stunned. "What?" But the officer wasn't looking at him anymore. His gaze was locked on the warrior. The two men stared across the bodies, across the silence that crackled heavier than any fire. The officer said, "Choose, strike him down, and prove their tales of savagery true. Spare him, and perhaps there is more to your people than blood." The scarred cowboy thrashed, spitting curses. "Kill him! He'll never stop, never!" The warrior's hand trembled now, torn between grief, rage, and the faint ember of something harder to name. Mercy, restraint, or weakness. The boy's last whisper burned through him again. "Father." His breath caught. His muscles tensed, and the saber began to fall. The saber plunged down and stopped. The blade struck mud beside the scarred cowboy's throat, slicing deep into the earth, but sparing the man's life. The ground trembled under the force of the blow, so close that blood from his neck smeared the steel. Gasps rose from the Apache. The mercenaries who still lived stared, wide-eyed. The scarred cowboy blinked, disbelief flickering into fury. "You coward," he spat. "You should have finished me. Now I'll—" The officer's boot crashed against his jaw, silencing him. The cowboy slumped into the mud, teeth broken, his voice nothing but a wet gurgle. The officer turned his gaze back to the warrior, who still gripped the saber buried in the ground. Their eyes locked. "You chose restraint," the officer said quietly. His tone was unreadable, neither praise nor contempt, but recognition. The warrior yanked the blade free, mud dripping from its edge. His voice was rough. "Not restraint, discipline. His life weighs less than the boy's breath." The officer's gaze flicked to the boy's still body nearby. For a moment, something human softened his hard expression. He raised his hand, signaling his men. "Stand down," he barked. The line of rifles lowered as one. The Apache stirred, confused, waiting for the hidden strike that never came. The elder stepped forward, suspicion sharp in her eyes. "Why spare us now? You rode with thunder, ready to burn us all." The officer's jaw flexed. "We rode to stop this rabble." He nodded toward the scattered mercenaries. "They hired guns, not soldiers. They dishonor the land, and they dishonor the law." A murmur rippled through both sides. The warrior's men shifted uneasily. Distrust carved deep into their bones. The officer dismounted, boots sinking into the blood-soaked ground. He approached the warrior slowly, each step deliberate. "You could have struck him down," he said, nodding at the groaning cowboy, "and given me reason to wipe this camp from the earth. But you didn't." The warrior's voice was low, taut with grief. "Killing him wouldn't bring the boy back." The officer studied him long and hard, as if weighing more than one life in his mind. Finally, he spoke. Take your people. Leave this ridge. Tonight, no bullet will follow you. But remember, mercy is a debt. One day, it must be paid." The elder hissed, anger flashing. "And if we refuse your bargain?" The officer's eyes hardened again, ice returning to steel. "Then I collect tonight." Silence. The warrior's grip tightened on the saber. His people's eyes bore into him, waiting for his word. He looked once more at the boy's body, small and still, lit by the dying flames. His chest ached, but clarity cut through grief like the edge of his blade. He nodded once. "We go." The elder stiffened, but the decision was made. The Apache began to gather the wounded, lifting them with care, whispering prayers over the dead. The warrior sheathed the saber in silence, then bent to lift the boy's body himself. He cradled him as gently as if he still breathed. The officer watched, unreadable. For a flicker of a second, respect glimmered in his gaze, respect for an enemy who chose the harder path. The scarred cowboy groaned in the mud, teeth red with blood. His eyes burned with hate even as his body failed him. "You'll regret it," he hissed through broken lips. "You'll all regret it." The warrior paused, boy in his arms, and glanced down. His voice was a blade in the dark. "You already regret it." He turned away. His people moved with him, slipping into the shadows, leaving behind the battlefield, the mercenaries, and the officer's watchful eyes. The officer stood still until the last Apache vanished into the trees. Then he gave the order, "Take the survivors, bind them. The law will deal with its own—" The scarred cowboy screamed curses as soldiers dragged him up, but no one listened. The night swallowed the camp. The fire hissed out, leaving only the echo of loss and the trail of footsteps disappearing into the wilderness. The warrior carried the boy until the ridge was far behind, until the only sound was the rustle of leaves and the cry of owls. His arms never loosened. When they finally reached a quiet clearing, he laid the boy down on soft earth, covering him with his own cloak. The elder whispered blessings, others bowed their heads, but the warrior did not speak. He simply stared at the boy's still face, his scars aching, his heart hollowed out. The forest pressed in, heavy with silence, yet even there he felt the officer's words linger like an unfinished echo. "Mercy is a debt." The clearing was silent, but for the crackle of a small fire and the whisper of mourning. Women wept softly as they dressed the boy's body with feathers and beads, his small frame wrapped in cloth that smelled of smoke and cedar. The warrior sat apart, back against a tree, arms resting heavy on his knees. His scars felt raw tonight, every one of them a memory carved into flesh, but none hurt more than the absence beside him. The elder's staff tapped against the earth as she approached. Her eyes, sharp as flint, lingered on him. "You spared the enemy," she said. "No accusation, no praise, just fact." The warrior didn't lift his gaze. "I spared myself." The elder studied him for a long moment. "The boy's death lies heavy, but it is not the first child we've lost. It will not be the last." The warrior's jaw tightened. His voice came low. It was his word that cut deepest. "Father." The elder's expression softened, though her tone remained hard. "A word carries weight, but you carry more than words. You carry the tribe's survival. Do not forget which burden matters most." A younger warrior stepped forward, face shadowed with anger. He should have struck the cowboy down. Mercy is weakness. Weakness breeds graves. Others murmured in agreement, nodding. The warrior finally raised his eyes, firelight burning in them. "Killing him would not bring the boy back, but it would have bound us all to his hate. I chose a different chain." The younger warrior spat into the dirt. "Chains are chains." The camp shifted uneasily, torn between grief and the weight of survival. One of the women cradling the boy's wrapped body whispered, "He was brave. He fought like a man twice his years. Let his death mean more than hate." The warrior's chest ached. He closed his eyes, hearing again the boy's last word. "Father." The fire popped, sending sparks into the night. The elder turned to the tribe. "We bury him at first light. The earth must carry him before the sun rises." Murmurs of assent spread, though the air was heavy with sorrow. Later, when the fire had burned low, the warrior slipped into the darkness alone. His feet carried him to a ridge where the trees opened to the valley below. The moon hung cold above, silver light bathing the land in pale silence. He dropped to one knee, saber planted in the ground before him. His head bowed. "Forgive me," he whispered. "Forgive the mercy I chose. Forgive the fury I did not unleash. Forgive the father I could not be." A rustle broke the silence. He turned, hand snapping to his blade. The archer emerged from the shadows, face worn with fatigue, eyes heavy but steady. "You blame yourself," the archer said. But the boy chose. He stood, he fought, he knew the risk. The warrior's voice was low, nearly breaking. "He called me father, and I let him die." The archer stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "No, you gave him something before death that no man could take, a father, even if only in his last breath." The warrior's eyes stung, though no tears fell. His hand clenched around the saber's hilt. The archer looked out toward the valley, voice soft. "The colonel will not forget. Neither will his men. Tonight's mercy will become tomorrow's test. We must be ready." The warrior rose slowly, his shadow tall under the moon. "Then let tomorrow come. Let them test what remains when grief is sharpened into steel." The two men stood in silence, the night vast around them, the fire of their camp flickering in the distance. At dawn, the tribe gathered on the hillside. They buried the boy beneath a cairn of stones, feathers tucked between them, beads tied to branches above. The women sang low, voices quivering. The warrior stood apart, arms folded, face carved from stone. He placed his saber against the cairn, bowing his head once before taking it back. The elder raised her staff, voice carrying over the wind. "This is not the end of his story. His name will live in our blood, in our blades, in the earth itself." The tribe echoed her, voices rising, a chant that carried into the valley. But when the voices fell, silence returned heavier than before. The warrior turned his gaze westward, where the horizon shimmered with dust. Somewhere beyond, the colonel's cavalry marched. The scarred cowboy nursed his hate, and the debt of mercy hung like a blade over their heads. The warrior's hand closed around his saber, scars burning. "This is not finished," he muttered, and as the wind shifted, carrying the boy's name through the trees, he knew the land itself was listening. The sun bled red over the horizon, painting the land in fire. The warrior stood at the edge of the valley, scars lit by dawn, saber at his side. Behind him, the tribe prepared to move, gathering their wounded, carrying their grief. But his eyes stayed fixed on the dust rising in the distance. Hooves and soldiers. The colonel had returned. The line of cavalry marched clean, rifles glinting, banners stiff in the morning wind. At their front, upright despite his bandages, rode the scarred cowboy. His face was swollen, jaw wrapped, but his grin twisted with hate. The warrior's blood chilled, though his stance never shifted. The colonel reined in his horse at the ridge. His eyes swept the tribe, then landed on the warrior. His voice rang like iron. "You were given mercy. You carry a debt. This morning, I've come to collect." The elder hissed from behind, staff clutched tight. "We knew this day would come." The scarred cowboy spat red into the dirt. His voice rasped, "Kill him now, Colonel. No speeches, no delays. He's the reason your men bled." The colonel's gaze hardened. Silence. Then, to the warrior, "You spared him. That choice binds us both. I need proof your mercy has weight. Prove you can hold your people under law, or I'll hold them under mine." The warrior's jaw clenched, his voice cut steady. "And if I refuse?" The colonel's hand lifted. Rows of rifles snapped upward, barrels glinting like teeth. The tribe stirred, panic flashing in their eyes. Children were pulled back, men gripped spears tighter, women prayed under their breath. The warrior raised his saber high, its edge catching the morning light. "If you fire," he said, "this valley will drink until no man leaves it alive." A hush fell. Even the wind stilled. The colonel studied him, unmoving. Then his gaze flicked to the scarred cowboy. "You want justice?" The man sneered. "I want his head." The colonel's eyes narrowed. "Then take it yourself." The cowboy's grin faltered. "What?" "Trial by steel." the colonel said flatly. "You claim he's savage. Prove you're not." The mercenaries muttered, uneasy. The tribe watched, breath locked in their chests, the cowboy's face twisted. But pride was poison in his blood. He slid off his horse, drawing a long knife from his belt. The warrior stepped forward, saber gleaming. The circle formed again, tribe, soldiers, the earth itself holding its breath. The cowboy spat, knife twitching. "This time you won't walk away." The warrior's grip tightened. His scars burned. "Neither will you." The clash was brutal, raw. The cowboy lunged, knife flashing. The warrior parried, saber sparking against steel. Blades rang, fists slammed, blood sprayed. The cowboy fought wild, hate giving strength to broken bones. The warrior fought cold, every strike honed by discipline, every move carrying the boy's last word in his chest. "Father." The knife slashed his arm. Blood poured, but he didn't falter. He drove the saber down, cutting through the cowboy's guard, forcing him to his knees. The man snarled, knife swinging upward, desperate. The warrior caught his wrist mid-air. His voice was a growl. "Your hate dies here." With a twist, he snapped the knife free. With another strike, he drove the saber point into the earth beside the man's throat, just as before. Gasps rippled. History repeated, yet something shifted. The colonel's voice cut sharp. "End it." The scarred cowboy's eyes widened, begging, "No, wait." The warrior's breath came heavy. His hand hovered. Mercy once had cost him the boy's life. Mercy had brought this reckoning. Mercy now might doom them all. But his scars burned with more than grief. They burned with purpose. He turned, voice loud, cutting through the valley. "No man owns another's death. Let his shame rot him more than my blade ever could." The saber rose, then fell into the dirt again. The cowboy sobbed, "Broken." The colonel's eyes narrowed, unreadable. Silence stretched long. Then, slowly, he lowered his hand. The rifles dipped. "You've proven restraint twice," the colonel said. "Perhaps that is strength." He turned his horse. "This ends today. Take your dead, leave this valley. If I see you again, the law will not show mercy." The cavalry wheeled as one, riding into the dust. The tribe erupted in cries, relief, confusion, fear. The warrior stood still, saber planted in the ground, chest heaving. His people gathered to him, eyes wide, voices mixing, some praising, some doubting. The elder approached, voice sharp. "Twice you spared him. Twice you risked us all. Tell me, was it wisdom or weakness?" The warrior's eyes blazed. "It was choice, and choice is power." He looked back at the cairn where the boy slept beneath the earth. His hand tightened on the saber's hilt. "His word lives in me. Father. And a father does not answer every wound with blood, not anymore." The tribe fell silent, the weight of his vow hanging heavy. The wind shifted, carrying dust and echoes away. The warrior sheathed his saber. His scars burned, but for the first time they felt less like wounds and more like armor. The valley lay quiet at last. The dust of hooves had vanished, and the soldiers were nothing more than a memory on the horizon. Only the broken earth, the cairn of stones, and the silence of the tribe remained. The warrior stood tall in the clearing, his chest rising and falling with the slow rhythm of someone who had survived more than just battle. His saber hung at his side, heavy, but no longer just a weapon. It had become a witness. Children clung to their mothers. Warriors lowered their weapons, though their eyes still darted toward the west, where law and rifles had vanished into the distance. The elder leaned on her staff, her face unreadable. "You have tied us to a path not of blood," she said, "but paths made of mercy are hard. They bend, they cut deeper than blades." The warrior nodded. "I know." His gaze turned to the cairn, where the boy's feathers still swayed in the wind. "But I will carry it." Some in the tribe murmured doubts, others whispered prayers, yet no one challenged him now. Twice he had stood in the circle, twice he had chosen restraint, and twice he had pulled his people back from slaughter. The archer joined him, bow slung, face worn from grief and long nights. "They will call it weakness," he said quietly. The warrior's eyes stayed on the cairn. "Let them call it what they want. The boy called me father. That is enough. The elder's staff struck the ground once on sharp. So it is decided. We leave this place. But remember, mercy makes enemies as much as it makes peace. Be ready. The tribe began to pack, gathering what little they had not lost to flames and steel. Horses were bridled, wounds were bound, voices carried soft through the trees. The warrior lingered a moment longer. He pressed his palm to the cairn, fingers splayed against the cool stones. His lips moved in silence, a vow not to the gods, not to his people, but to the boy who had given him a word heavier than any blade. Father. When he finally turned away, his scars felt different, still jagged, still burning, but no longer chains. They were marks of survival, reminders that restraint could cut deeper than fury. The forest swallowed the tribe as they moved east, leaving the valley to its silence. Days later, travelers passed the cairn. They spoke of the strange stillness of the land, of feathers tied to branches that whispered in the wind. Some said the valley had seen blood enough to last a lifetime. Others said a warrior had broken the cycle, choosing a harder strength. But the truth lived only in those who had walked away. For the warrior, every sunrise would carry the weight of his choice. Every scar would remind him that mercy was a debt, but also a gift. And when his people doubted, when enemies mocked, he would remember a boy's final word, a word that turned a brutal fighter into something more, a father. If this story of strength, mercy, and sacrifice moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel for more tales that uncover the hidden battles of the past, stories of warriors, families, and choices that shaped lives forever. And if you're ready for another journey, click the video waiting on your screen right now. It holds another story of survival and courage you won't forget.